Welcome everybody. This week's Torah portion is I'll just introduce myself in case anyone doesn't know. My name is Tommy Krasniansky. I'm married to Hindi, and I will be doing the class today. So this week's Torah portion is Mishpatim. It's the sixth one of the book of Exodus, I think, and it comes right after, at the heels of the Ten Commandments, which we read in the synagogue this past Shabbat. 10 Commandments. Um, so this is the Torah portion right after that. And there's even though there's there was the 10 Commandments, but there's obviously a lot more commandments. We all know there's 613. So in this week's Torah portion, we get a big chunk of them. I think it's 53 total. So just it's after Moshe came, after the whole story at Mount Sinai, Moses went up the next morning, and he was there for 40 days and for 40 nights, getting all the mitzvahs. Now, we know that what happened at the end of that, unfortunately, at the end of those 40 days, Moshe came down with the tablets and he saw the Jews were serving the golden calf. But that will be in a few Torah portions. That's not this Torah portion. Here we're going through some of the mitzvahs. The word mishpatim means laws. And what's interesting to take note is that a lot of these mitzvahs, or almost all of them, are all about how one person should treat another, or things that come up between people. In general, in the Jewish literature, we kind of separate. There's two categories of mitzvahs. There's the mitzvah between us and Hashem. We call that bin Adam lemakom, and then there's mitzvahs that are between one person and another, bin Adam lechaveiro. And so this Torah portion has mostly the ones that been on the chavero, between one person and the next, which that in itself already kind of teaches you the idea that just coming from the 10 Commandments, the receiving of the Torah. But first things, the first mitzvahs that we're going to hear right after that are going to be mitzvahs about how to be a mensch, how to treat other people when things come up, etc. So that's obviously important perspective to have. Once we're talking about the two categories of mitzvahs, it's actually something that comes into play, and something interesting that I'm sure a lot of you have heard in Hebrew school. The idea that there's a story where a non-Jewish person that wanted to convert to Judaism came to the person named Shammai. This is going back, over 2,000 years ago. Came to Shammai, and he said, I want to convert. I want to, but I want to learn the Torah. But I guess he said I don't have time or whatever. So teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot. That's what he told him. And maybe that's where the expression comes from, on one foot. Teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot. We know that so Shammai, what he does, he said, obviously this guy's not serious. He can't learn the whole Torah, in 15 seconds or whatever. And he sent him. I think even the Talmud even says like he took out a stick, and he sent him out. That's how the story goes. But then, he goes to Hillel, and Hillel was known for his patience and for his kindness, etc. So he actually did not kick him out. What he did was he told him, you know what, I'll tell you the whole Torah on one foot. He said like this, famous line, I'm sure many of you have heard before, don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. That is the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. That's what Hillel told him. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that line before. The rest is commentary. And he said, so go. He said in Zil Gemara, go learn that commentary. Don't think that you have this one line and that's all you need to know. No, go learn the commentary. But the main part of the Torah is, don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. It's a famous mitzvah called Ahavat Yisrael, loving a fellow Jew. And that's what he was telling him. Now, that's what the Gemara says, very nice. But there's a reason why Talmud is studied at length and not just reading it right away. The commentaries ask, how could Hillel say that? It's a nice story. It's a nice one-liner. Don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. But what? How is that true? How is that the whole Torah? How does that include the whole Torah? And different answers, but Rashi, which is always the go-to, Rashi says right there, and like this is in a few words, but he says what it's referring to, and it says this is the whole Torah, that it's a lot of the mitzvahs have to do with this. A lot of the mitzvahs have to do with the idea of how you don't do unto others, you don't want done to yourself. And what Rashi means to say is, again, all the mitzvahs that are in the category of ben adam lechavero, between one person and another, how they treat each other. That's which let's say half of the mitzvahs are like that. Those are all included in that idea of don't do unto others, or don't want done to yourself. And therefore, Hillel was right for saying, that is the whole Torah, meaning that's a large portion of the Torah. If you want to have one line that's going to include a lot of mitzvahs, it's that idea of don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. And again, it's a big part of the Torah, so much so that Hillel said, that's the whole Torah, to a certain sense. And that's that's what we see in this week's Torah portion, like going straight from the Mount Sinai, from the Ten Commandments, we go straight to to all these mitzvahs about how to treat other people. So that's one understanding of that Gemara. There's other understandings how it could maybe include everything. I guess I'll say it in short. It's from the Tanya that basically how you treat others shows where you are spiritually in your relationship with Hashem. Yeah, because every person is a child of Hashem, and based on where you're holding in your spiritual journey, that's how you'll see other people. If you're all about your connection with Hashem, and that's the main thing, and the rest is secondary, the rest is temporary, secondary, not so important, then you will that's where you'll see other people. What makes them better than you or different than you. Really, we're all the same. All our souls come from the same source. We're all brothers and sisters, etc. And if you're focused on more of the soul aspect of ourselves, then that's what you'll notice when you see someone else. That's the first thing that will come to mind. And therefore, you won't see differences between each other. You'll see how you're one and the same, how you're connected, and therefore so again, based on the way you treat others, that's a sign that shows you where you're holding. That's a test. So let's say you want to know, are you in a good place spiritually? So you ask yourself, when you see someone else, you see another Jew, what comes to mind? How do you look at them, etc. Do you notice their more material secondary aspects, or do you notice right away their soul, etc. That they're the fact that we're one and the same. That tells you where you're holding. So that's another way of looking at it. But that's that's what this week's Torah portion is all about. All these different mitzvahs. Again, there's 53 mitzvahs. Now obviously we're not going to be able to go through all of them. But we'll highlight maybe some of them and and take some lessons from it. One of the interesting mitzvahs in the Torah is the idea of interest, not to loan on interest. See if I can find it quickly. But I can't find it right now. Is a law about interest. That we know that Torah says you can when you're lending some money, you can't charge extra for the loan. Now, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to interest, because on the one hand, we know Jews have like a reputation, a history of being the bankers, meaning in other words, giving out loans on interest. That's what made the Jews a little different. That Christians weren't able to give money on interest, and therefore there weren't people giving out so many loans. If a business needed a loan, a person needed a loan, they couldn't really get it. They had to go to the Jews. So that's we see that Jews did loan money on interest. And the answer to that is that it really depends who's involved in the loan. When it comes to two Jews involved in a loan, the borrower and the giver and the lender are both Jews, then the mitzvah of not lending out with interest applies. But if one of them isn't Jewish, then you can do it. Now, by the way, just to point out, there's really this mitzvah of interest. It has three mitzvahs to it. It's three of the 613. One of them is not to lend with interest. Another one is not to borrow, meaning even the borrower has a prohibition of borrowing with interest from the lender. And the third one is then someone cannot take part in, kind of getting this loan done, facilitating the loan. That also cannot, is in a separate mitzvah. Now, again, it seems a little odd. When it comes to, I'm saying about a non-Jewish person, whether the non-Jewish person is the lender or the borrower, it's okay. In other words, the Torah is not only saying, oh, you could lend to non-Jewish people with interest, you could also borrow from non-Jewish people with interest. Now, it's a little odd because, let's just, what would be the reason why the Torah says you can't lend money with interest? We assume it's because it's it's not a good thing. Someone that needs the money, they're maybe a little desperate, and it seems like someone's taking advantage of them by asking them to pay back more than they're given. Yeah, that's the initial way I guess you would look at it, and that's why probably in other religions maybe it's not allowed at all. But truth is that that can't be like that because first of all, when let's say it comes to stealing, right? Stealing is something that's you can't take advantage of someone else. It's not allowed. Someone steals from another person. The Torah doesn't say, oh, if it's a Jewish person, you can't steal from them. If it's a non-Jewish person, then you're allowed to steal from them. No, there's no such thing. You can't steal from a Jewish or non-Jewish person. You can't lie. You can't cheat. All these things, applies to Jews and non-Jews equally, obviously. So it must be that the idea of lending with interest is not necessarily a bad thing, and that's why there is this that gives room. We'll talk about why, but that gives room for a difference between Jews and non-Jews. Another idea is that if you look in some of the the medieval commentaries, you'll see there that they debate about is interest a bad thing, not a bad thing, and they come to the conclusion that it's not necessarily so bad. And we all know that when we're talking about the economy, one of the biggest things that everyone wants to know and talks about is the interest rates, right? Low, high. But the point is that if there's no lending happening, if people aren't able to borrow money or it's harder to borrow money, that slows down the economy. You need lending with interest in order to keep the economy going. No one's going to lend if there's no interest at all. So people are happy. People are happy to borrow with interest, and it's in their own benefit. So seemingly loaning with interest is a good thing, and that's why it's okay to loan to a non-Jew or to borrow from a non-Jew with interest. So then the question remains, so why is it why can't one Jew to another lend or borrow with interest? And I saw two points to this. First of all, we look in the verse where it talks about this mitzvah. It mentions how if you're going to lend money to Hashem says al ami, to my nation, then it's then you shouldn't ask demand interest from him. That's the way here found it. So this is chapter 22, verse 24. When you lend money to my people, to the poor person who is with you, do not act toward him as a creditor. Do not lay interest upon him. That's what the Torah says. Now, again, so it says that to my people, when you lend money to my people, don't lend money with interest. That's what it says. And why is it my people? So one of the ideas is that Hashem is saying, look, if you lend money to my people, to the Jewish people without interest, they're mine. They're my children. You won't lose out anything from it. What's preventing someone from loaning someone money without interest? Okay, first of all, you hope you get paid back. But let's say you're not worried about getting paid back, but also, you need to have money. You need to have cash to invest in something in order to make money. So by you not having access to money for a certain amount of time, that's called losing money. Besides for nowadays, there's the whole idea of inflation, etc. That could also make your money worth less if you're just going to get back the same amount. You're really getting back less. But Hashem says, don't worry, it's my nation. And if you do it, you stick to it, you have nothing to worry about. The second point is that the Torah, and this is a little more, warm, is that, even though, yes, that's how business works, is loaning with interest. But when it comes to, two Jews, it's, we don't look at it as business, we look at it as mishpacha. Imagine a family member says, "Oh, I need help." You're not going to say, "Oh, I'll lend you money, but I want the interest back," whatever. It's a family member. It's mishpacha, so we take care of each other. Maybe they'll help us when we need something, fine, but it's not a idea of like asking interest. That doesn't happen. So, between family members. And that's the way, this idea of interest. So again, in short, I'm saying it's not necessarily Torah says interest is a bad thing. Maybe if the too high of an interest could be bad, but again, the rabbis could have, the Torah could say there's a limit on how much money you can make in interest. For example, when it comes to sales, there's laws about you can't make too much profit on something, or you have to disclose how much you bought it for before you sell it for so much more. Maybe they could do the same with interest, but no, because again, it's a good thing in general. You're allowed to lend money or borrow money with interest. But when it comes to another Jew, it's like mishpacha, and therefore we should be lending it without interest. Now, practically, there's first of all, I'll play out some scenarios. How this could apply, and even if you're not necessarily involved in banking, etc. But before that, I want to point out that there's we all know that Jews again are involved in banking, etc., just like anyone else, and there's how do they do it? How is it allowed, especially in Israel? And the answer is there's something called they call it in Hebrew, it's called a heter iska. They found a way basically to be able to write up a contract in a certain way where it's not interest, rather it's your money that's produced, it's making profit. In other words, usually when it comes to a loan, you lend someone's lent the money, and now it's their own money. They can do whatever they want with it, and they just have to pay back at a certain date. So now the money itself has no connection to the lender. But when it comes to this special contract, it's like set up in a way that part of the money still belongs to the lender, and his money is what's making some of the profits. And that's where the extra money, so to speak, is coming from. It just has to be set up and structured in that way. It's called a heter iska. I don't have experience with it, but if it ever comes up, then you can ask your local rabbi to direct you to the right place. But I remember here we had someone that's involved in I think mortgages, commercial maybe. Anyways, but he was talking to someone in New York and the client or whatever, and all of a sudden the client says, "Oh, like I just realized that, oh, you're Jewish. Oh, sorry, we have to, we have to write up this special thing, or else I can't go through with this." And he never heard of it, so he came over to us and he asked us, "What is this thing?" etc. But again, it's there's a way to deal with it, but it's something to be conscious of. Now, how does it play itself out? So first of all, I want to mention that there's a way to fulfill this mitzvah. The way to fulfill this mitzvah, even if you're not a banker, you're not lending out money, etc., is there's something in every Jewish community has something called a gemach, gemilas chasadim. It means a interest-free loan society, etc. We're able to, someone that needs it, a time of need, etc., they can borrow money without having to pay back interest. For example, someone's marrying off a child and they don't have that extra money to pay for the wedding. They'll go to a gemach, borrow whatever amount of money, 5, 10, 1,000, and they'll, hope to pay it back at a certain point in time. I don't know the technical details, but that's something that's available in all every Jewish community has something called the gemach. And also it's not only in money for cash. There's tons of gemachs for clothing. That's a big thing, especially going back to weddings. If people can afford to buy a wedding dress or this or that, they'll go to a gemach, and they'll have people donated, their wedding dresses. I'm just giving one example, but there's just in general clothing gemach. When we were living in Tzfat, in Israel. I remember we had a friend who was running the gemach, like with warm clothing because it could get pretty cold in the north of Israel, and people could have it for the winter season, and then they bring it back. That's what a gemach is. Again, the idea of lending something to people and without charging them, whether it's interest or other type of fees. And every Jewish community has something called a gemach. So, by giving money to a gemach, you're fulfilling this mitzvah of lending out money without interest. Now, just to show how important this is, or how special it is, there's a it's not the topic that we're really talking about, but there's a Maimonides in his book of law gives a whole list of different levels of giving charity. So once you give charity, what are the different levels? What's like the lowest level, highest level? Let's say for example, you give it, but like you're not happy to give it, or like treat the person well as you're giving it to them. That's like so there's different levels of that. It's in the bottom part of it, and the middle section is about if they know who's the one giving, and does the giver know who's the one that's getting? Neither of them know. That's like another higher level, and then the highest level, Hermione says about charity is not even actually giving charity, but rather giving someone a job or teaching someone how to, have an income. Or example he gives is giving someone an interest-free loan to get on their feet so they can start off their business or whatever they need it for. Then that is a big mitzvah, because like famous line about instead of giving you a fish, I'll teach you how to fish. So Judaism, Maimonides writes about how it's a big, Judaism really believes in that, and that's the greatest form of charity you can do, is help someone get on their feet. And one of those ways is again by giving interest-free loans, so they're not keep on getting beat down. And that's the way to do it, is by you can give money to Gemach and help people. So that's that. Now, ways that this mitzvah plays out, just to give you some. First of all, the chapter about the laws of interest is tracted in Talmud called Baba Metzia. It's, I think, the fifth chapter, and it's considered it's known to be one of the hardest chapters. And I remember when we were learning it in yeshiva, I thought I was going to be a big, whatever, and I'll learn through it, but it wasn't as easy. I think I was 17, and it was a bit challenging. I don't think I finished that chapter. It's a lot of complicated details and nuanced cases, but to throw some things out there, there's first of all, um, even if it wasn't agreed upon interest, let's say the borrower just wants to give more back, that's not allowed. Even to the extent that borrower, while the loan is still in effect, cannot like do any extra favors for the lender. Even I don't know how far it goes, like even like opening a door, if it's something that wasn't normal, not casual, then in other words, you're doing it because of the loan, or at least it looks like that, then it cannot be done. That's just one example. Examples about early bird specials. If you want to, someone's, let's say, trying to produce something and they want to collect money, and you don't know how to be able to invest in it. So they say, oh, if you give money now, you'll get the same product for less. It's not so simple, because you're saying, oh, by letting me have the money for a certain amount of time until you get your product, I'll give you more out of that. That's the idea of interest. There's a lot of technical details how you can do that. It's not so simple. What other examples is something? Another thing is that it doesn't only apply to money. It applies to food, clothing, etc. So, for example, if someone borrows, 7 eggs because that was left in the dozen of eggs, you said, I'll give you back. You can't just give a whole pack of 12 back, because you're giving more than that was borrowed. So that is another way it can play itself out. So yeah, it's a lot of little details about this mitzvah, but again, the general idea is that when it comes to mishpacha, we're there for each other, and we don't start charging interest, etc. Okay, wow. there's a lot of mitzvahs. Another mitzvah that's interesting that's spoken about, the laws of damages. So in damages itself, there's many categories. One of them is if someone hit another person and the person got damaged. So what do you do? So um famous line is I'll skip to verse 24. It says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. Right? Yeah, we've heard the term eye for an eye. Now, you know, seemingly that seems to mean that someone, damaged someone's eye, and their eye gets damaged. Someone damaged someone's knocked out someone's tooth, their tooth gets knocked out, hand, foot, etc. That's what the Torah seems to be saying. But the Talmud and Maimonides, etc., go at length to show that's not what the Torah is saying. Torah actually means that it should be monetary compensation for the damage. What they could have used that limb for if they were, put on the market, so to speak, to work. Now they can't do that. Now they're worth less. So that's what you have to pay. Not that actually you have to give, eye for an eye literally, but rather the value of an eye has to be given for the eye. This is in addition to any medical bills, things like that. So in addition to all those things, there's also the idea of a monetary payment just for the value of that limb itself. And yeah, I mean, I can go on and on about what the proofs are that the Torah doesn't mean to say literally an eye for an eye. I won't get stuck in it, but Maimonides writes when he talks about it, he says that it's something that's always been like that for since Moses and Joshua and Samuel, every generation till now, they've never ever done eye for an eye, and because this is the way Moses was taught at Sinai, that this is the law, even though in the Torah it sounds like it's written something else. Now, I saw something interesting that the way you kind of could see it in the Torah itself. So the word that it says eye for an eye, the Hebrew word is ayin tachat ayin, an eye for an eye. The Hebrew word is tachat, taf, ches, taf, tachat, an eye for an eye. So the word tachas actually means under. Modern Hebrew. I don't know modern Hebrew well, but I think if you say the word tachat, people would laugh because it means, the underside. But the word tachas means under. That's what it literally means. It could also mean in place of, but it means under. For example, where you have this is when by the binding of Isaac, right? It says, the angel told Abraham not to slaughter his son Isaac. So Abraham took the ram that was there stuck in the bushes and offered him as an offering tachas b'nai instead of his son. And what's interesting is if you look at the letters, if you take the word ayin, ayin is the letter ayin, yod, nun. If you take those letters and you go one letter down in the Hebrew alphabet, so from an ayin you go to a samach, and the yod, you go, and then you go up to the chaf, and then the nun. Oh, maybe I'm missing something. Sorry, the ayin you go up to the pei, the yod you go up to the kaf, and the nun you go up to the samach. Yeah, then so now the letter down. Sorry, if you go a letter up in all those letters, you end up with the word kesef. Kesef means money. Yeah, in other words, when it's saying an eye for an eye, it's saying money for an eye. That's the way you can see it in the Torah itself. And again, that's when you see this word tachas, it implies that, just like it implies by the by the binding of Isaac, that not literally, he took another boy and slaughtered the boy instead of Isaac. It was a ram. It's not the direct, so instead of this, you have the same exact thing in a different way. No, it's changed a little bit. It's a little different. So So that's the same thing here, that not an actual eye for an eye, but rather um the monetary value of the eye. That is what it means. But still, even after all this, we could have a question. What's going on here? Why, if the Torah meant to say that it's just a monetary compensation for the eye, so why doesn't the Torah say that? Why does it have to say eye for an eye? And you have to say, oh, if you look at switch the letters and you have a money, it means money, etc. Why did the Torah just say clearly, and that you have to, someone damage someone's eye, they have to give a certain amount of money, etc. Why doesn't the Torah do that? Why does the Torah have to say it one way, but it really means something else? Like you always ask someone, just be clear, be straight up. Um, so that's obviously a question that could be asked. So a nice story, that kind of where this same question was posed. This question was asked of Rabbi Cook. For those that know the history of the beginning of the state of Israel. So he was the first chief rabbi before even the state was a state. I think he passed away before 1948, if I remember correctly. But he was the leader of the religious Zionists at that time. And yeah, Israel then was full of socialists, a lot of socialists, Zionists, etc. And a lot of them were very secular. And but he befriended some of them. So one of them went over to him and asked him, let me see if I can find the person's name. The person's name was Azar. Alexander Ziskin Rabinowitz. So he was just known as Azar. He asked him this about this, why did the Torah say one thing and mean something else? Why is it, if Torah means, again, doesn't mean eye for an eye, just write that it means money. So the Rabbi Cook gave an interesting answer. He said, let me give you a parable. You have or maybe a everyday occurrence. You have a child that doesn't, is misbehaving. And the father sees the child misbehaving and wants to raises his hand, God forbid. This is going back a bunch of years. Or maybe it was a little more common. But he raises his hand, he wants to punish his son. And the mother, at the last second, who's obviously full of sensitivity and compassion, rushes to stop the father and says, don't hit the child. Let's figure something else out. Let's find a lighter punishment. Now, you could, if you're watching this scene, you could be like, oh, look, the father knew that the mother was going to stop him, etc. So why did he make a big scene and, make as if, or try to hit the child and have to get stopped? Why the whole scene? Just go straight to ask the mother. Okay, what do you suggest? What do you think we should do? And, but that's the way it looks. But the truth is, obviously, that just from the child seeing, his father's reaction, and knowing what he really does deserve, just that his mother stopped it, but the child deserves something else, knowing, in other words, that it's wrong what you did and it's pretty serious, etc. That in itself is part of the education for the child, telling the child what's right and wrong. And therefore, you need to have both of these points. On the one hand, what's deserved here, but not necessarily going to happen. At least you should know what's deserved, and then how it actually plays out. What's the actual punishment? So that's what that's what's happening here. You have on the one hand the way it's written in the Torah itself, the written Torah. The way it's written is eye for an eye, because maybe that's what the person deserves. But that's not the actual punishment. That's the way it plays itself out. Rather, like it's said in the oral Torah that Moshe received at Mount Sinai, how it actually should be. That it shouldn't be an eye for an eye, but rather it should be a monetary payment. So you're gonna have like the mother written Torah and you have the father, the written Torah, saying this is what you deserve, and then the written Torah, the oral Torah, saying how it's gonna be, a lighter punishment. At least it's important to know. The seriousness of the punishment, or of the sin, etc. And that's why you kind of have this. Again, he asked him, why does the Torah say, why doesn't it say it clearly? And the answer is because it's important for us to know what's supposed to happen, what's deserved, what's supposed, and just it plays out differently. But you should know how it's different. And therefore, by the way, it's kind of leads us to that idea that according to the Torah, there's a difference between damaging someone's property and damaging someone's body. You damage someone's property, so then you have to pay for it, and you move on. But when it comes to hitting someone, then it's you have to ask for forgiveness. Um, even if you pay and you compensate, it says you still have to ask forgiveness. It's not enough, and that's attached to the greater idea about that according to the Torah, we don't our bodies don't belong to us. Our bodies belong to Hashem. Hashem gives us the body as on loan, so to speak, interest free, but it gives us the body on loan to accomplish what we need to accomplish in this world. But it doesn't belong to us. Therefore, no one could, God forbid, say, obviously to the extreme extent of suicide is obviously not allowed. But also even other small, yeah, do this damage to me, do this other damage to me. I don't care. No, it's not simple. You can't just let someone hit you, damage you, etc. When it comes to medical things, obviously, that is for the benefit of the body of the person. But the point is that we don't look at the body as our own. It belongs to us. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Hashem. And that leads me to the next point I want to talk about is that there's a one of the mitzvahs here in the Torah portion is that it says if you see someone's animal struggling under the weight that it's carrying, and the person needs help, you have a mitzvah to go help him unload the animal and help him reload the animal. You can't just sit there and watch idly and not help out the person. That's what the Torah portion says. And I'm pretty sure it says if you see your enemies, it says even to like say if you see your enemy's donkey struggling, so you need to help them out. Even if it's your enemy, you still need to be there for them. And here, yeah, it says, this is verse 5, chapter 23, verse 5. Because if you see the donkey of someone you hate crouching under its burden, would you refrain from helping them? You shall help repeatedly with it. That's what it says. There's a famous quote from the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, in the late 1600s, early 1700s. The way he reads the verse like this: if you see the donkey, Sainacha, that hates you. In other words, sometimes the bodily needs or drives or passions, desires, they're they're our enemies, so to speak. They're impeding in our spiritual growth and journey. It's working against us. But you see that it's struggling under the weight of what it needs to do, etc. So don't say, oh, you know what? I'm gonna refrain from helping. I'm gonna let it struggle. I'm gonna let the body struggle, not take care of it, whatever. I don't care. I want to focus on my spiritual self and growth. And I'm not gonna, whether to the extreme of like fast, I'm gonna fast often or whatever it is. I'm not gonna care about my body because it's just getting in the way. It's like my enemy. That's what a person could think. So the Baal Shem Tov says that no, if you're gonna think so, don't. So the Torah says, "Azav tazav," you have to help him out, even if it's your enemy, so to speak. You have to help them out. In other words, and the way he said is that this is teaching us the idea that we're not Judaism is not here to try to be detached from this world, from this material world. That's not the goal. If God wanted that, He could put us in a more spiritual world. Our mission here is to take the world and uplift it. Take the body, so to speak, and help it out so it shouldn't struggle under the weight, but that you're here to support it. And that's again shows us that same idea that our bodies don't belong to us. We can't say, you know what, I'm not going to treat it well. I'm going to throw it on the side or not care, even if it's maybe annoying or it's getting in your way and you want to focus more on learning, etc. But you need to take care of your body because it's not yours. It belongs to Hashem. And that's the Jewish perspective on these things. And obviously it plays itself out in many ways. One of the ways it plays itself out is when it comes to, the discussion of abortion, not to get into the full thing. And, obviously Judaism is different than Christianity, etc., which I'm sure you've heard before. But one of the starting principles that you need to start the conversation off with is that Judaism doesn't believe that our body is ours, our body is given to us, but it's not as on loan. It's not our body to decide whatever we want. The question always is, what does Hashem want? What does Hashem say we should do? Okay, now we could discuss. You have a discussion of what Hashem says about such a topic. But the idea, the notion that it's ours and therefore we can do whatever we want, that just like someone, the Torah doesn't allow someone to cut off their finger, etc. The Torah, in other words, you see the Torah gets involved in that, so the Torah also gets involved in this. That's just again, not to get into the full conversation, just to start it off. One last thing, I guess I'll mention, and I guess with that we'll finish. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. There's another again. There's a lot of mitzvahs, a lot of interesting ones. I would suggest to just read through it. You maybe there's some mitzvahs you never knew about. But one of them is the idea of if someone steals, if someone robs, what happens? So the Torah says that if someone robs, you need to you find the robber, then you need to he needs to pay back double. But the example the Torah gives isn't just like a regular case of robbery. It talks about someone that he gave an item for someone else to watch. He entrusted an item in someone else's custody to watch it for him, and it gets stolen from that house. And then they find the robber. The robber has to pay double that amount. That's his penalty. Not only he has to give back what he stole, but he gives back another whole 100% of that. And yeah, that's the law. Okay, it's not so simple. There's some technicalities to that, but we're not going to get into it. But just to learn this on a more a lesson that we could take from this is the idea that Hashem, like we mentioned, Hashem entrusted our soul. He entrusted the soul in us, etc. And sometimes maybe we didn't do the best job, and it's getting stolen. It's being abused for the wrong things, and it's being robbed, so to speak. And the perspective to have is not to say, you know what, whatever, it's too late. What am I going to do? The Torah says, no, you have to go find the robber. Go find the robber. When you find him, you give a double punishment, double payment. Meaning, in other words, that take the the damages or take the struggle, etc., and not only reclaim it, but make it that it gets you more than you had before, and it's in a better place. Yeah, and obviously, I'm sure you've heard this many times in context and Torah discussions. The idea that when we're struggling, we look at it as something that's getting us to a higher place. Especially when we're past something, we can transform it to bring us to a better place. There's a quote in the Talmud about that if someone has sins, the sins can be transformed into merits. Even if someone does enough, proper repentance, teshuvah, then those sins, the previous sins, could become, merits, the catalysts, etc., stepping stools, to grow. And that's the Jewish way of looking at things. We never despair, never say whatever, leave it to the side. On the contrary, everything can be used for good. Everything can be elevated, and that's our job. So we hope to do that. Never see, like I remember a line that was on our fridge when I was growing up. It said, the problem is not the problem is your attitude to the problem. That idea that it's always important to have the right frame of mind, etc., and to look at things in that way. See, there was a question here. We borrow money from a Jew and they charge interest. Is that okay? Not just from this. If it's as simple as that, no, it's not necessarily okay. And even after, the way the law works is that even if they agreed upon something, you still can't pay it. Like, in other words, even though if the loan was given, etc., you can't pay it back extra. There's ways how to deal with all these things. You can speak to a rabbi that knows more about this category of law. But yeah, if someone borrows money and they charge interest straight up, very simple, straightforward loan, even if they agree to pay the interest, you're not allowed to pay the interest once you know about this law. So yeah, that's the answer. I hope. So sevenfold if you catch a thief. So it's interesting, actually. There's I don't know if I've seen that before, but I've seen in a different context, there's the idea of paying 4 or 5 times what was stolen. That's a very specific context. If it was a lamb or a cow, I think, and Yeah, I think that's referring to, yes, it's if they lie first or whatever, it has or they slaughtered it or sold it, specific context. But yeah, sometimes it could be more than just double. It could be even more than that. And that's again the same idea that we can grow a lot from our challenges, from our struggles, if we have that perspective. So we don't get despair, we don't grow into despair, etc. Rather, we look to grow from it. Okay, so I guess with that we'll finish. If there any more questions, feel free. Thank you all for joining, and looking forward to seeing you. We have the event tonight. Forgot what the name of the person is. This is speaking from the Levy Forum. Let me just pull it up on my phone quickly. I'll let you know. It is from a guy named Glenn Laurie. He's going to talk about the partnership between Blacks and Jews. It's starting at 5 o'clock with a light dinner and reception, and then the program itself starts at 6. And I'm looking forward to having you there some other time in the near future. Thank you all for joining, and I want to wish you an amazing rest of your week. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you sometime soon. L'chaim, l'chaim.